Right now on KREM 2 News at noon, a multi-state crime spree ends when police shoot and kill a man wanted for multiple carjackings and a deadly shooting in North Idaho.
And it's a warm start to this week with temperatures well into the 80s. We're tracking a bit of wind before we get to a much bigger cool down later in the week.
And in just a few hours, Spokane City Council expected to vote on two different proposals to address the homeless crisis. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us here on KREM 2 News at noon. I'm Laura Papetti, and we begin by getting a check of the forecast. Thomas Patrick is joining us now from the KREM 2 Outdoor Weather Center. Thomas, certainly an absolutely beautiful day so far, but there are some changes coming later in the week.
Yeah, I think the biggest weather story is going to be at the very tail end of the week, which coincides with the first few days of the summer season. It'll be much cooler by then, but in the meantime, let's just enjoy another beautiful and warm day with today's temperatures already pushing 80 degrees as of the noon hour, and oftentimes we can still add about 8 to 10 more degrees between now and those peak high temperatures for the day. So that would put us easily into the mid 80s, not even pushing the bounds of 90 degrees for some spots in the inland northwest. There is quite a bit of some high cloud cover. It is just starting to stream in from the west here, and if you look, there is some subtleties in that. I think that might be just enough to keep us off that 90-degree platform for today and put us at about, let's call it 85 or thereabouts for most of the inland northwest. Still a warm day overall, and even with that cold front passing through, one, we're not going to get any rainfall out of it, and two, it barely even gets colder as of tomorrow. If anything, it might get a little bit breezier overall. Like I said, the big weather story might be at the very tail end of the week. This would not be 80s for us here locally. That could be down into the 60s for high temperatures. That right at the start of the summer season. So coming up, I'll show you in detail what that temperature trend and weekend forecast already is shaping up to look like.
Right now here at noon, we are working to get more information after a deadly crime spree happened over the weekend. A man carjacked multiple people in both Washington and Idaho, killing someone in the process. He led police on a high-speed chase that ended in officers shooting and killing the suspect. KREM 2's Regan Gallo breaking down what happened.
A father and daughter were waiting in line in their car at the Whistle Stop coffee shop when a suspect approached them and stole their vehicle at gunpoint. The suspect then drove away, reaching speeds up to 140 miles per hour on I-90, setting off a chain of tragic events that would soon follow.
I mean, on a Sunday morning, it's kind of a slower pace to start out, not really expecting anything like that to happen.
Jeff Moreland and his family has owned the Whistle Stop coffee shop since 2007. And what he initially assumed was a typical Father's Day morning with traffic at his coffee stand quickly turned into a frightening scene.
The car was actually parked right here, waiting in line for coffee. And that's where it all really happened, is they were a couple cars away from being at the window.
The Spokane County Sheriff's Office reports the suspect had an AR-15 rifle and a 9mm handgun in their possession. What you're looking at right now is security footage we received from the coffee shop owner of the suspect walking over to the dad and daughter in their vehicle. The suspect is seen with a weapon in his hand, and shortly after, the dad and daughter exit the vehicle as the suspect later then takes off. After leaving the coffee shop, the suspect quickly got onto I-90 heading towards Idaho.
The speeds were estimated at over 140 miles an hour of the suspect. Law enforcement were not able to catch up to the suspect vehicle.
That's when reports came in of another carjacking attempt, this time at the State Line Village.
We had an aggravated assault with a vehicle. We had 3 attempted carjackings. We had another successful carjacking, and we had a murder.
Authorities say at the State Line Village, the suspect intentionally hit a motorcyclist, stole another vehicle, and started heading back towards Spokane Valley. But before the suspect left State Line, they shot a Good Samaritan trying to help a woman who was victim of one of those carjacking attempts, which resulted in the Good Samaritan being killed.
I believe that he saw a woman that was in distress, and he went to the aid, and unfortunately, he did pay the highest price for it.
As the suspect went back towards Spokane Valley, that's when there was one more carjacking attempt in the East Valley area. Authorities responded yet again, and reports say the suspect was shooting outside his car window at law enforcement. The suspect was finally located on Trenton Pines, where the suspect hit a civilian car and a Washington State Patrol vehicle. WSP troopers were already in the area patrolling a separate vehicle crash. When they were alerted, the suspect was on their way to that same area, which gave them time to block the roadway. Shortly after, the suspect fired more shots after crashing. They then exited the stolen truck, and law enforcement advised shots had been fired and the suspect was down. Soon after, the suspect was pronounced dead at the scene.
What happened out in State Line could have easily been right here.
I want to emphasize how professionally, how swiftly, and how decisively law enforcement acted in this very dangerous moment. It was dangerous for them. It was dangerous for the public. They didn't hesitate, and I'm proud of them.
Now, this investigation is still ongoing, which means details can still change. The Spokane Independent Investigative Response Team is currently conducting their own investigation. And of course, as we learn more details about the suspect and all those impacted, we will of course keep our viewers updated. I'm reporting in the newsroom at Regan Gallo, KREM 2 News.
Regan is continuing to work that story today. In the meantime, news continues. 2 people are dead after a crash on Highway 395 near Loon Lake yesterday. Washington State Patrol says a car driving north on the highway tried passing another car using the shoulder. They sideswiped the car they were passing, causing both to swerve into the southbound lane, hitting another car. 2 people died and 2 others were hurt. And this is coming in new at noon. A man has been sentenced to 10 years in prison for trafficking drugs into eastern Washington. The United States Attorney's Office says Jose Gonzalez Rodriguez of Mexico was working with an organization transporting drugs from California to Spokane. Here are some photos of some of the evidence. At the time of his arrest, investigators found more than 5 pounds of meth and more than 66,000 fentanyl pills. And obviously having some technical issues, we do have this posted on KREM.com. In the meantime, 11 people are facing failing to disperse charges after the No Kings protests in Spokane. They could make their first court appearances as soon as this afternoon. Thousands of people lining downtown Spokane streets for hours and were peaceful for most of the day. The only clash came between protesters and law enforcement later at night. SPD says they ordered people to leave because they were blocking roads. When they refused, officers deployed smoke and pepper balls. Also coming new at noon, in the last half an hour, the suspect in the shootings of 2 Minnesota lawmakers and their spouses made his first court appearance. The 2-day manhunt for Vance Belter ended last night after a tip led police to a field near his home. Belter is accused of shooting and killing State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark on Saturday. He is also charged with the attempted murder in the shootings of State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette. Police say the shootings were politically motivated. And the death toll on both Iran and Israel sides are weighing heavy on this year's G7 summit. President Trump is in attendance, and all eyes are now on the White House for if and when America may get involved. Natalie Brand has the very latest.
President Trump is meeting this morning with Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney, the host country for this year's G7 summit, bringing together 7 of the world's top economies. But looming over the gathering, the conflict between Israel and Iran, now in its 4th day.
It's painful for both parties, but I'd say Iran is not winning this war. And they should talk, and they should talk immediately before it's too late.
An Iranian missile attack overnight damaged a synagogue in central Israel and a school building. Residential buildings were also hit. The U.S. consulate suffered minor damage and remains closed as a precaution. In Iran, thousands are fleeing Tehran. The health ministry reports more than 200 killed in Israeli military strikes so far. Before leaving for Canada, President Trump expressed hope for de-escalation.
Sometimes they have to fight it out, but we're going to see what happens. I think there's a good chance there'll be a deal.
Nuclear talks between the U.S. and Iran were canceled over the weekend. CBS News has learned the State Department is instructing embassies worldwide to emphasize the message the U.S. was not involved in the Israeli strikes on Iran. President Trump on social media also warned if the U.S. is attacked in any way by Iran, the full strength of the U.S. armed forces will come down at levels never seen before. CBS News has also confirmed reports that President Trump opposed an Israeli plan to kill Iran's supreme leader, conveying to Prime Minister Netanyahu it wasn't a good idea. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.